Hello, all our SPG followers, contributors, people who are well wishers for us, and welcome to the fifth procurement clinic. Great response from all of you, and we have been really thrilled to navigate the journey of procurement on various topics of interest with your help, your suggestion. Today, we have a very unique discussion to take place because the world is moving, and the decisiveness that a procurement professional needs to possess while he makes his own decisions, handles multiple stakeholders, adds to the long term business strategy of an organization, and creates value, has always been looked upon as a critical dimension of procurement. This dimension of procurement requires certain characteristics, certain competencies. Some of those competencies are absolutely inborn. One cannot be taught that. That is where we thought, as the SPG leaders group, that we should introduce all of us to a different way of looking at procurement, and hence the conceptualization of uh, women in procurement as a series for all of us. My fundamental belief has been that I worked across the industry, I've worked across multiple sectors, and women have represented a very unique set of characteristics which have created huge amount of value for procurement. So in today's talk, we have got excellent speakers who will help us navigate, and hopefully all of us who are attending this webinar for today will learn new aspects, new views, and then contribute meaningfully to the profession. We've got Monique joining us all the way from South Africa today, and we've got Shivani. Before I introduce our panelists for the talk today, I'll just request Mr. Gautam, who is present today, to introduce SPG to those who have still not got a chance to appreciate what SPG is and does. Gautam, will you like to talk about it in a minute?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Pinat. So, welcome all of you. Welcome, Monique. Welcome, Shivani. So, this is our a very special episode of Procurement Clinic. Basically, this is the Women in Procurement series. So, I'll quickly tell you what SPG Leaders is. So, SPG stands for Supply Chain and Procurement Group, and this group is the one of the first group which is completely supplier free and non-sponsored. So we don't believe in any fancy events, award functions, no filters, nothing. It's just straight talk. So SPG stands on three pillars, which is networking, learning, and career development. Networking, we hold events, physical and virtual events, where we get procurement leaders on board on a platform, physically or virtually. Learning, we are offering curated training programs for procurement, supply chain, and sourcing professionals. These programs have been designed by professionals who are a part of the industry. And the third one is career development, where we help procurement professionals in enhancement of their career. So whether it is growing in the same job, or looking for a new job, or getting certified on something, any kind of career guidance, mentoring, etc. So this is a nutshell about SPG. In a span of 6 months, we've managed to have close to 1,000 members from across 21 countries, which is a very proud moment of us for us. So this is it. And now I hand it over back to Pinak to take it ahead from here.
Yes, thanks, Gautam. I'll take the privilege to introduce Monique first. Comes with 3 decades of experience in procurement, facilities management, handling very complex operating environments. And for me, when I spoke with Monique as part of the preparation of this webinar, I thought that Monique comes with a very commercially astute, governance driven approach to procurement leadership. Uh, in her current role, she is involved as a multifaceted procurement professional, handling executive leadership, legal, finance, IT, suppliers ecosystem. Fundamental belief, which I appreciate from her, that she carries, is that procurement decisions should support business continuity, risk management, cost optimization. And for me, what I heard from her is, more importantly, procurement decisions should support long term business strategy. Her leadership philosophy is very unique because foundation of her procurement leadership philosophy rests on integrity, clarity, and impact. While she believes that results have to be achieved, she willingly wishes to create environments where people can grow, contribute very meaningfully, and more importantly, can lead with confidence. All of us who come from procurement as a domain, we appreciate that we all sit at the intersection of strategy, risk, and value creation. And Monique is a very passionate contributor to women in leadership in procurement. And she wishes that women carry more confidence, decisiveness, and get more visibility. Welcome, Monique, to the webinar. It's a privilege to have you at SPG for this particular webinar on women in procurement.
Thank you.
Second panelist is someone that I found very interesting because I when I spoke with Shivani as part of the preparation, obviously she comes with a lot of experience, has spent a couple of decades in procurement and supply chain. More importantly, Shivani has a cross-industry experience, which helps the discussion today. She comes from, for me, very unique industries like renewables, industrial sector. She has worked in manufacturing, and she's also part of consulting. When I spoke with Shivani, what I realized is a very important thing, which I think women in procurement will surely benefit from, is how do you combine technical fluency with an enterprise-wide transformational mindset? That's her. She has built that formidable career of 2 decades in the industry on this premise, particularly steering a lot of projects in source-to-pay digital transformation, setting up procurement centers of excellence. Shivani has, in my talk with her, expressed that she is a very strong advocate to advancing women in leadership, supply chain leadership. Over her own journey, she has realized. I mean, her journey includes impactful roles where she has championed data-driven procurement strategies, supplier governance models, and more importantly, operational excellence framework. So she has championed the domain, and at the same time, she's willing to contribute to inclusivity, capacity building, and equitable representation of women in procurement, which honestly speaking is underrepresented today by women. She's putting a lot of efforts in mentorship, creating visibility, and creating pathways to help women rise to senior roles in procurement. And her, what you can call is objective of doing all of this is to improve diversity and resilient supply chain of future. Thanks, Shivani, for accepting the invite to join today. It's a privilege to have you, and I'm very confident that we'll have a very great conversation with you and Monique in this procurement clinic.
Thank you for having me, Pinak. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Looking forward to this discussion.
Absolutely. And while you and I were speaking, what I thought as a very interesting thing is if procurement is not a profession which you make by accident, you make it by choice. It requires a very deep level thinking. It requires you to make the choices very conscious. You have spent so much of time, Shivani, in this career, which means for me, as a third person looking at the career, I look at it as a chosen career path. And looking at what you have achieved so far in your career in 2 decades, it's a very successful career. Now, what intrigues me is A, you made a choice to be in this, and two, you chose not to drop it halfway through, which means you made the choices of growth. You navigated this career, and today it will be very interesting for me to appreciate that what does it help as a career to make those career correct choices. Can you help our audience with that? I mean, for me, it's interesting to understand if you could help my audience today to know what does it take to navigate a career in procurement and supply chain.
Well, thank you, Pinak, for this wonderful question. And like you very rightly said, we do not like fall into this procurement. I think each one of us has made a very conscious decision to stay here, because
Yes,
I think being supply chain, you're kind of the center of a lot of activity for any organization. So you kind of always have these doors open for you, where as technology was advancing, as technology is advancing, throughout my career, I think you always have these exits on a freeway where you could have chosen a different path, and then
correct,
you navigate. You're very right when you said that you navigate the way, you want your career to go. I think if I'm to like talk to you about how what should be like a roadmap, and in terms of how you want to navigate your career, it's I think the first thing that comes to my mind is what I did initially in the initial years. You're looked at as a more tactical or a transactional buyer. When
correct.
you're in the role of a buyer when you start your career. So you looked at somebody who's just required to make sure that the peer to peer tat is met, and you're getting the best prices, you've done your best negotiations, things like that. And while that is
Correct.
great at that point of time to get your negotiation skills up, to see what's the how to get the best price and what's the market, supplier scouting, etc. While it was all great and that kind of lays the foundation to a career in supply chain and procurement, I think at some point of time I decided to shift to a more architectural thinking, where you
Oh,
decide, all right, I'm bringing in some savings, I'm doing a lot of I'm doing a lot of good procurement, I'm buying a lot of things, but then you need to navigate your thinking to navigate to senior roles. You must shift
yes,
your mindset. You should be like, okay, I'm looking at purchase, but then I need to look at what's the value chain that I'm creating. I said, what is the impact, whatever I have negotiated, whatever I'm buying, what is, how can I restructure the whole deal? How can I restructure my entire contract when I look at that? The moment you start doing that, you are no longer just a shopper or a buyer. You become the architect of the company's external ecosystem,
yes.
per se.
I like this term. I really like this term. Becoming the architect. Yeah, please go
Yes,
ahead. I mean,
yes.
I interrupted you, but I
Thank
just
you.
love
No,
this
no,
term. You
please.
have used it two
I,
times till now.
yeah, no, thank you. And I think the other thing that helps in your early career, I think we've all been there. You kind of get assigned to a certain category. Once you're reached a 5 6 year mark on your career, and then you've reached a certain, you are assigned to a category. That's where you start looking at, all right, I can get some good category expertise. And uh, that's where I think you also get the exposure to what is the big broad understanding, in terms of
Mm,
the entire business, because you start to deal with various departments within the organization. So I think that's where you, if I must say, you need to have a T-shaped skill set, where you're deep
mm,
into one category, you're building your expertise, you're known for, your expertise in that certain category, be it your negotiation analytics, be it your negotiation tactics, be it your contract
correct.
law for that certain category. And, and you are like the go-to person. Oh, it's Capex. We need to go to a Pinnac or a
Yeah,
Monique, Gotham, that kind
you're
of
the
thing.
parachute for, you're the parachute.
Yeah, you're the parachute for that category, very rightly said. So you kind of become that person. In the same time, I think all of us have done this, maybe subconsciously without even realizing it,
Yes.
but saying it for the sake of people who are looking to make a career in procurement. You need to have a very working knowledge of your departments or your stakeholders nearby you. You need to
Mm,
know
mm,
what's the P&L impact that you're creating. You need to
correct.
understand what is the operational impact, your lead time negotiation with the supplier. You need to start looking at every negotiation that you do with your external ecosystem, how it's impacting your internal ecosystem.
Mm,
And
mm,
then these days, of course, the focus is also on ESG, so you need to also
yeah.
make sure that you're working towards your ESG goals. So for somebody who's looking to get into procurement on a serious level and make your career here, get to the CPO level, I think you need to have a T-shaped profile for
Yeah, I
yourself.
love this.
Thank you.
This is very
Thank
Absolutely.
useful, actually, what you said, no? A T-shaped approach to career. But I'm very sure that when we shape up our own careers, uh, there are crossroads to be uh,
you. All right.
passed through. I mean,
Yeah.
there are crossroads. We cannot avoid those crossroads. It may be, as you are rightly saying, it can be a strategic negotiation, or it may be a very important project in the company. And now I've reached a stage in my career where I know a few things, but for this particular strategic negotiation or this particular project for the company, I'm at a crossroad where it's a new terrain for me. It's not a terrain that I've passed through in the past. And with Monique's role that she's playing today, where she is into complex operating environments, handling multiple stakeholders, uh, I would actually love to request Monique if she has a view on this, that I'm at a crossroad into a new terrain and I have to make decisions. What I know till now in my career is not very useful in this particular extended scenario. Have you experienced that, Monique, in your career where you have reached that kind of a stage where you are at a crossroad and now you have to make a decision? And if you have
Absolutely.
experienced that, how does one make a
Absolutely.
decision then? That's where I would
I
love to hear it from you.
I think that when you experience certain things, being so long in the game and being at a juncture where things worked for you in the past and it doesn't work for you at the moment, what do you do? What do you tell yourself? How do you approach it? I think what's important is that you need to understand and have clarity around what you're thinking about, the decisions that you need to
Yes.
make, the principles that you've applied in the past, the confidence you have in yourself in terms of decisions that you've made in the past. All of that culminates into how do I navigate this unknown territory? I must not be scared about it, because sometimes anxiousness or panic creates more problems for you in your mind. You need to have that clarity. And I go back to the word clarity, because if you don't understand the environment you are in, you are going to
Mm.
make a mistake. You need to understand the environment. And like Shivani has said, that tea, I like that. I really like that analogy, because we don't sit in a little bubble and everything happens around us. We need to be finances, we need to be logistics, we need to be creditors, debtors, doctors, lawyers for negotiation of contracts. So we have to be an all-rounder, and that's what makes procurement so exciting. You're never going to sit with a situation that's unknown to you. And when you
Mm.
do hit the unknown, you're going to know how to navigate your way through that, because you need to have the confidence when you make a decision that you stand by the decision that you've made. So your judgment needs to be clear, needs to be understand and also appreciated by your peers when you make that judgment. Similarly to the fact
Ah.
that when you make that judgment, you need to be accountable for it. In procurement, you
Mm.
take full accountability for your actions. You cannot put it on someone else. You need to own it, and that's where I go. You need to own it. That is the reason why you'll always be, and I said absolutely, because you'll always be in a predicament where you don't know how to handle a certain situation, but you need to know how to navigate through it. Once you've made the decision, is I've made the decision that I understand, and I'm happy with my decision, and I move forward.
I I appreciate what you said. Confidence, clarity. And the most important thing which I find is your peers have to believe in you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Like, that credibility of your character, in my opinion, is very crucial there.
Yes, it is, because that defines on how they experience you and how you experience them. And when you've made that decision, they have to be confident and accept that decision.
Shivani, you want to say something about it, because I'm seeing that
I
you are
am so
tempted to speak.
I'm just like yeah, I'm actually able to relate to every word you're saying, Manish, right now, because I think building that trust for procurement and for anybody in our positions, it's very important to see as a trusted partner, and to be heard
Hmm.
by your stakeholders. The moment I'm nodding so much is because I'm able to absolutely relate to everything that you're saying.
Yeah, we
I
are the
think
trusted advisors. We are the trusted advisors to our peers, even to ourselves. Even to
hmm.
ourselves. When we make a decision, we need to trust that we've made the right decisions for the right reasons, obviously.
And that requires us as procurement professionals to have a contextual understanding of what my stakeholders wish to achieve. In
Absolutely.
absence of that appreciation, we may actually think that we are doing a great job, but our stakeholders still don't feel happy. So the term for us is trusted advisors here. What Monique said, we are trusted advisors, and you trust the advisor only if the advisor has a holistic thinking in himself and not a biased one. Because one thing which is then very crucial for all of us in procurement is when I want to become a trusted advisor, it naturally means my decisions have to factor for a long-term business strategy impact. Right? It may be through a better managed risk or an enhanced supplier governance model, something like that. I mean, I love to hear from you, Monique, a case where you may have impacted long-term business strategy by being a trusted advisor to the stakeholders. And
So
as you rightly said, the focus is on clarity here. And I wish to
absolutely,
know, how do
yes.
I build that clarity there?
I think that sometimes procurement does not even realize that they actually shape the outcome of a strategy in a business.
Mm,
You know, we have the top layer, so you have your little pyramid, and you have your top layer um, where decisions are made and strategies then filter down into the rest of the company. But when that strategy hits procurement actually shapes it in terms of the risk, the contracts, the
correct.
governance, the people that actually encompasses that strategy to be successful. So
Mm,
sometimes procurement is not always the loudest voice in the room, but our thinking should be heard. And that for me is so
mm,
important because that's how we shape the strategy. And I know that a lot of companies don't realize that we shape the strategy from a procurement perspective because it's how we buy, when we buy, whom we buy from. As Shivani has mentioned, ESG has become one of the most top of mind items
mm,
or
mm,
topics in any business at this point in time. Whether you be in India, whether you be in South Africa, we're all bound by that. But when
mm,
when when strategy is drafted, sometimes these little salient requirements are not in there. But we drive
mm,
it from a procurement perspective because if we don't drive it, that strategy can never be accomplished. So for me, it's really just enabling the right outcome of that strategy with the team that you
mm.
have, with the procurement knowledge that you have, and also just ensuring that when you understand the strategy and you're able to cascade that strategy down and understand the nuances of that strategy, we actually make that strategy successful. We talk
Rather,
about
you please continue. I'll come back.
we talk about in South Africa particularly, we talk about the BEE structure, which is Black Empowerment Economic, the structure of that, and that is part of our strategy within South Africa requirements because we need to be either level 1, level 2, level 3, black owned, etc. I won't go into the detail, but what does it that means that our businesses can operate on a certain level if they allow inclusivity into
Oh,
the way we
oh.
structure procurement. And that's why I'm saying the strategy, when the strategy is on the top and cascades down, most of the businesses lose that. They just put it as a requirement, ESG, BEE,
Mm.
but they don't really see the depth that goes into that to achieve that compliance.
Oh, this is a new learning for me, by the way, because inclusivity, I've heard about it, but this particular aspect of inclusivity in procurement is something which is very new to me also. Sometime back, when I was trying to interject, I was thrilled to share that there's a new matrix which is being used in the industry today. Because if you look at procurement as a function, they've always talked about procurement as a cost optimization function. And very rarely, you get to hear people talking about shaping the strategy. And, it's only very recently, I think, that the technology companies particularly are showing the world that procurement can actually shape the strategy and not only support the strategy, so to say. And we can actually help you achieve growth rather than only being cost optimization players for the company. That's a very important thing. And it comes down to, and you rightly said that when you impact long-term strategy, and many a times you and I, when we work in procurement, we are not even aware of that. And one thing that you were highlighting while you were speaking is ability of my procurement professional, and particularly if I'm women working in procurement departments today, my ability to be a trusted advisor by collaborating, cooperating with the ecosystem that I'm working in, which means we are sitting right there in the middle of internal and external interfaces. So we have multiple internet interfaces that we have to collaborate, cooperate with, and we have external interfaces with whom we are collaborating. Uh, Shivani, in your elaborate career, and particularly when you're steering those large projects of source to pay digitization or procurement excellence, enterprise-wide procurement excellence, I'm very sure you've come across this as a key skill set, or in general, if I were to call it as competencies of stakeholder management. What does it take if you were to kindly help us with appreciating that I'm a role, I'm a procurement professional. I sit right there in the middle where I have internal interfaces. I've also got external interfaces. What should I possess as skills to excel in stakeholder management?
Pinak, you very rightly said, we are like the interface, so we're like
Yeah.
treated as the gatekeepers, But then, like you also said earlier, we are supposed to also be the navigators. And, like Monique
Mm,
said, we are actually not just driving, we're not just chasing a saving numbers that was assigned to us as a key KPI, With this change in geopolitical environment, with the change in technology, with all that's happening, stakeholder management is all the more crucial, And to excel in this, if I may say, procurement is the eye of the storm. You've got everybody around you, and you're sitting at the center, and you need to navigate all of your stakeholders.
yes.
Yeah, so if you're going to be sitting in the eye of the storm, one needs to have a blend of technical precision, and you need to have high level of soft skills when it comes to stakeholder management. And
Oh,
then, like Monique said earlier, you have to be a trusted advisor. People need to listen to you, so you have to be like, you need to follow design principles, like the design therapy, the design philosophy, where you have an empathy. You need to understand what your stakeholders want, what are their pain areas, and how is an action on your part going to affect them. So an active listening, as long as you have empathy and active listening, and that's what I have done, and I think most of us have done this. Once you have that, you understand what is the impact of my action, and then once you try to empathize with them, with the stakeholders, with your, be it finance, be it operation engineering team, because there's always a fine balance that you're trying to always create between all of the various stakeholders around you. And then of course you have to be the translator capability of the center point as well, where you must speak different languages, if I may say, very fluently. For example, if you're talking to somebody who's in finance, you need to be talking to them about P&L. If you're going to talk about, oh, this is how I negotiated with my supplier, it doesn't relate to
mm,
them, it doesn't ring the bell. So you need to have the translator capability as well, where you're fluently talking, and bridging the gaps between what's the technical specs, what's the commercial reality, what is going to be the outcome, so that nobody feels like they're being sold something or a solution that they don't
mm.
understand. As long as you're listening actively, you're talking their language, I think they would see that you are becoming a trusted advisor to them. And then I think conflict resolution is always a bigger part of procurement that we're always trying to maintain between. I think we all agree to that. We are always trying to find the third way, where finance wants the best cost, engineering wants the best quality. So you're always trying to, walk that fine line. So you're always into conflict resolution. That's another key quality that you should have when you're handling your stakeholders. And then also, I have felt as you progress in your career, Pinak, I think all of us would relate to this. You also need to be politically a little savvy. So when there are
Mm,
quieter times, build that social bank of yours, that you can rely on
mm.
later. When there's a bad news to deliver, oh, the material's not coming, But then when there's no RFQ, once there's nothing major going on, bank on your social bank, so that you can cash on it later. So that kind of skills, building a rapport always helps, during the peacetime. So you'll have a social capital, so you can spend later. And then if
So,
you're in the room, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just like, if you're in a room full of opinions, the person with the most digestible data will always win. When procurement talks of data, to the point, your data becomes your strength. When you talk with those, I think you build a very good relationship and with your stakeholders, and they listen to you and they believe in you, and that's what keeps everything going, I believe, smoothly. At least a lot more smoothly than it should be.
I like the last term, digestible. That's very
Yes,
important because stakeholder management is about digesting a lot of things.
yes.
And
They should
you gave
digest. We should
me,
digest.
Totally
and
agree. I think
And
also just to add to Pinak, just to add to Shivani, exactly what you've said, when you have clarity, when you are clear in your communications, and you're astute around it, the fairness also comes into play. EQ is extremely important because you cannot be biased. You have to talk to the truth of the information that you provide, and you have to have factual information while you're still keeping the empathy level aligned with your peers. So I really like that from what you just said.
I I I got a punchline here, very nicely given by Shivani. Digestible credibility is built on data, and stakeholder management is naturally technical as well as soft skills. And if I and you were to debate, then probably many of us would like to give more weightage to the soft part of it rather than the technical part of
I think we've all felt that, Pinaki very rightly said.
it. And that
Diplomacy.
Yes.
diplomacy, I agree. And that diplomacy, and Shivani said it very nicely, build your social network during the peacetime so that it comes to your
Correct.
Absolutely. I like that too.
help. Fantastic. I mean, I have one last question, which I wish to make it very specific to women in procurement. Till now, in this discussion, I mean, we've not brought this as a purely a question, but I wish if you both, at the level of seniority, both of you sit at, help us. We have got a lot of women audience who participates in this webinar. Assume that you have to advise the senior management of a company for creating more equitable and inclusive representation of women in procurement. Now, what will you like to advise those managements to create a more equitable and inclusive representation of women in procurement roles? We can start with Monique and end with Shivan.
I think it must be intentional.
Okay.
Organizations must not regard procurement as a transactional deed, but more of a strategic way forward.
Okay.
They need to allow people to grow into an environment that is going to be sustainable. It is not, like I said, it's not a transactional role. They need to understand people that wanting to go into this career where companies need to build onto it, that they are visibly there making decisions that's going to actually be meaningful to the business. So
Mm,
they must give them the right authority at the right level.
mm,
Additionally, I think they must support their peers in the procurement environment with confidence,
mm,
not always empathy, but with confidence that they will deliver on what is being given to them. At the same time, the individuals must be resilient. Never take anything personal in procurement. Never take anything personal, because it's not a personal
mm,
act. It's a reaction from an action that someone has done because they don't understand. Help people understand. Be more clear in your direction. Be more clear in your responses. Be deliberate in what you do, because you know procurement, you know it well, and organizations that see that will give you the path to actually grow. And I've seen that, and I've encountered it, and I believe it, and that's why I'm saying it must be intentional from the organizations that pursue this route of procurement. And it's important that we are, once again, trusted advisors, and that we understand our trade, and we understand our trade very well in all
so
aspects.
nice. Very impactful for me to understand this and never make procurement personal. Shivani, would you kindly help us with your thoughts on this?
No, I completely resonate with what Monique said, Panak. It has to be intentional. So, if I were to give management any advice, and if I were in a boardroom and I would want to move the needle for women in procurement, I would actually go with some strict measures, like intentional measures of the diversity matrix is already there. Where we are
Okay.
actively looking to have the women. I think it's there. The other thing that there's an implicit bias. So if you could just look at a resume without the name and the gender, and then pick on the skills, then
Mm,
decide what should a diversity
mm,
be, I think that would do a lot of favor in terms of what the person has delivered. I think otherwise there's somewhere an unconscious bias there. Oh, she's a new mom, or she's recently got married. It's there, whether whether you say it out loud or not, but it's there. And I think all women in procurement have felt it. And, with this, that's one thing. And then there's also like bridging the technical gap, with the upskilling. So women are typically, especially in the manufacturing sector, I've worked across sectors like you've already talked about earlier. In IT and ITES, it's a great ratio. We have approximately, I read it somewhere, 33% women contributing in boardrooms. It's an exact reverse in a manufacturing sector or production environment, probably at -10. So women in procurement in these industries are kind of funneled into indirect procurement by default. We're just assumed to not have enough technical skills, which is a bias again that should be fought very actively. And then maybe formalize sponsorship, and not just mentorship. Tie a few executive KPIs to sponsorship. You have to sponsor a women leader, and you have to make sure that she's right. She's part of good strategic structural deals that will work for the company. Tie it to a sponsorship, and you will see a good improvement in in the
Oh,
women.
that's a fabulous idea.
Yeah, yeah, I
Because we
think
have heard about mentorships, but the sponsorships is a very
sponsorship.
fabulous idea, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because modern
Fantastic.
procurement requires very high EQ, a relationship management skill, and collaborative problem solving that naturally comes to women if given the right. We've been viewed through a lens of very aggressive and adversarial negotiation. Procurement has always been viewed through that, which is a style that is often coded as masculine, but it's not. With the change in the geopolitical environment and with the great support that you're getting from your HR policies to all of our male colleagues that have supported us. I think me and Monique can always say we've got great mentors and they have shaped us to be where we are. But we need to keep working very intentionally towards raising this percentage of women in procurement.
Yes.
Fabulous. I mean, uh, if someone in the senior management looks at our webinar today, and even if he spends the last 3 minutes of the webinar, I think that's a great message to be taken. I mean, it's a fabulous discussion. We've come to the closure of our talk for the day, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly. Trust me. I mean,
Same.
it's a privilege. But before we close, I'll try to summarize what you've spoken for our audience. Uh, I'll not run you through the entire discussion, but there are always learnings for a person like me when I meet such senior leaders like Shivani and Monique in my life. I have a habit of taking something away. My today's takeaways, I'll try to put it. There's a shifting in the mindset to a new role that is very crucial if you are navigating this career. Become an architect, don't be passive. Having a T-shaped skill set is very crucial, and today's world requires you to have a T-shaped skill set. Shivani gave us that as the insight in the first 5 minutes itself. It's that like Africa and India share a common passion called cricket. She gave us the Sachin Tendulkar start to the discussion actually by giving these three key terms. For me, that was a great learning: architect, T-shape, and shifting of mindset. CSG has become a very important thing. Shivani gave us some insight into that. Monique actually talked through very key terms that your careers will always be at crossroads, and you'll have to navigate those careers at those crossroads. Your previous learning may not necessarily be very useful at that stage. Now, how do you make career decisions at that stage? Have clarity, have confidence, and more importantly, have peers who believe in you. And the one term that stayed with me was own your career, be accountable. That's very important for us. And when we talked about long-term business strategy and the impact that we as a profession called procurement have, Monique gave us a very good insight. She said that, look, many of us look working in procurement, we ourselves don't appreciate that we are shaping the company strategy. So that's a very important learning for us that we are doing that. Uh, uh, when we were talking slightly on the other part, which was how do I do stakeholder management? I think Shivani and Monique, both of you gave us great insights. There's a technical aspect to it, and there's a soft skills aspect to it. So be a trusted advisor if you are in procurement. And I think a woman role in procurement as a trusted advisor, in my opinion, will be far more acceptable than a male role, because trust comes very naturally when we talk about a woman. I mean, that's very personal experience, but thought of sharing it here. Uh, the punchline that Shivani gave me, and it will stick with me for a very long time, is build your social network within the company. I mean, that's a very important thing when it comes to managing stakeholders, particularly in a boardroom where data has to be presented. Make it digestible. Speak different languages. When we say languages, not about speaking languages as in the English versus other. We are talking about languages like, as in the dichotomy to be used while speaking. So the example that I recall from Shivani is, when you're speaking with finance, you should know the finance language. If you're speaking with a design guy, you should be technically proficient. If you're trying to make inroads with the senior management, then you'll have to speak the language of strategy. So when she used the term language, I probably believe that is it. Last but not the least, if you and I were to advise the managements of our companies, generally managements of companies, on equitable representation, I think it has to be intentional. Monique rightly said we should give the right authority. Monique also made a very important statement: never make procurement personal. That's a very important thing for women in procurement today. Never make anything very personal. Uh, Shivani gave us an insight that already for equitable presentation there is diversity metrics. But if you were to pick up a profile without looking at the name and gender, then the unbiased decision making may come up. That pretty much is something that I summarize for all of us today in this webinar. Has been lovely to speak with both of you. I mean, on a Saturday, you guys spared some time to speak with us. Thank you so much for being around today.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you
having
very
us.
much.
Thank
Yeah,
you
thank
very
you for
much,
the
It was
Monique.
great.
Thank you
opportunity.
very much, Shivani. Thank you
Absolutely,
very much.
Shivani. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you for
Yeah.
having us. And it was
Yeah,
great listening to Monique and Pinak and every one of you. Thank you.
thank you.
Yes.
Indeed.